talk about the RCF M20X. So why did I buy this thing? Well, I wanted a small form factor digital mixer that had a decent amount of power. Now, what I really wanted to buy was the Allen & Heath SQ5, and I had thought about getting the SQ5, eventually selling my X32, selling my stage box for the X32, and then eventually buying a stage box for the SQ5. But SQ5 wasn't in stock, so I picked what I think is the next best thing, because I believe this is about the size of an SQ5. I didn't measure and compare, but roughly about the same size. I bought the same SKB case that the SQ5 fits perfectly in. To rack mount it, same case fits this, so roughly the same size. So far, this is kind of an initial thoughts review. I haven't done any serious mixing on it, but I have brought it out to a few events, mixed a few handheld mics, no labs or anything, but handheld mics, and then just music through it. But during that time, I have played around with it quite heavily. So I've even messed around with it here, trying to figure out the ins and outs, and kind of the idea behind this is I'm going to use it as my DJ mixer. I'm going to use it when I go out and do karaoke shows. I know it seems overkill for karaoke shows, but I'm still going to do it. But smaller corporate events where maybe I don't need the X32 and a stage box, because it is a big case, right? So with this, I can have this and a couple of wireless mics rack mounted and have probably still a smaller case than my X32 case. X32 compact. It's not a full-size X32, but even the compact, the case is a little big. I still like to put it on a cart and wheel it in. So this is just a little bit smaller. Now, obviously, a full band, if you're running, say, 16 inputs, even though you can do that with this mixer, I wouldn't necessarily want to because of the lack of scribble strips. Yes, I could use tape, but that's probably going to be my number one complaint about this thing, is just the lack of scribble strips. Now, I don't really plan on using it at anything big enough to where I'm using really more than maybe 5 or 6 inputs on the main. It's basically going to be lavs, podium, a couple wireless handhelds, and then maybe some music ins on the second page. So nothing I can't keep track of. And it does say the input on the screen. If you hit the select button, upper left-hand corner, you can name them. And I actually did buy a nice K&M tablet stand. So I bought 2. So I bought one that's like an articulating arm that I can clamp onto a table. Just because even with my X32, I have ran into some corporate events where I was needing to keep hands on the fader, unmute things on my tablet, and I was like, dang, I need to mount my tablet right here so I can just be have both arms working. So that got the articulating arm for this and that. And then I also just bought a tabletop stand for a tablet mount that was pretty nice as well. But, and then obviously on the tablet, you can label everything as well. So when you label it here, it labels on the tablet. So if a guy does need to look at the tablet to see, you can. Obviously, you can put tape down, but who wants to do that nowadays? Nothing bugs me more than the guy that's got the really nice mixer with scribble strips and there's still tape all over it. I'm like, dang, man. I know somebody on here told me these user-defined keys up here, you're gonna have to label them. And I was like, no, because I'm gonna remember what those buttons do. There's only 8 of them. I think I can remember what I programmed them to. So, anyways. Small digital mixer, and I know in the past I've had the QSC Touch Mix. I'm not a big fan of, because some of you are probably thinking, well, why don't you just get an X32 rack or Touch Mix or maybe even the RCF rack-mounted one, Soundcraft, what the heck is their models? Like an SI-24 or something like that. Could be totally wrong on that. I used to own one too. Not the 24, the 16. But anyways, I'm just not a fan of 100% tablet mixing. And maybe it's because I'm weird in the fact that when I raise a fader up and I see it at 0.00, like I've got it at Unity, and I raise my finger up off of it and it clicks down to -0.5, that just annoys the crap out of me. It really does. And the same goes with EQing, you know, like everyone touts like, oh, it's parametric EQ is so easy on a touchscreen. And it is, right? Like put your finger on it, squeeze, pinch, adjust the Q, bring it up, swipe it over, pull it down. But as soon as you take your finger off of it, it moves. It's never exactly where you had your finger. At least not for me. I don't know. Maybe I need to learn how to I'll sit there and I'll redo that and I will just focus on perfectly raising my finger straight up and the thing still fucking moves. It annoys the crap out of me. When it comes to parametric EQ, I prefer using knobs just for fine tuning, and you know, maybe the fine tuning doesn't matter, but when I put the parametric EQ right there, I want it to be there. I don't want to raise my finger and all of a sudden it moves over a couple of frequencies. That irritates me. So 100% tablet-based mixers were out. Plus, you know, what if your tablet dies? What if you forget your tablet? You know, I don't like being dependent on a tablet. And that goes back to my Soundcraft. I'm pretty sure it's a UI16. The Wi-Fi did not do good in heat. I used it on a couple of outdoor band shows where it would start heating up and the Wi-Fi would crap out. Like all of a sudden it'd just be unresponsive by the tablet. There is no, like I can't walk over to it and adjust faders because the Wi-Fi crapped out on me, you know? I would have to go up to the band, and this happened a couple times before I finally sold the thing, was that I'd walk up to the band and I'd go, oh, my mixer crapped out. You're gonna have to take a break. You know, and who wants to do that at a live show? And then they'd take a break. I'd sit there and reset the mixer, restart it, try to figure out how to put it in even more shade than it was already in. So it's nice to have physical controls. So that eliminated a lot of options because I wanted small physical controls. You know, this is what I got. Originally when I got it, I was like, you know, it's so small there really isn't room for scribble strips. But then I got to thinking, I'm like, you know, if they can put like 4 lines of text right there, they probably could have squeezed in some scribble strips. But I do like the price I paid for it. So, and it is a small mixer. So I don't necessarily think not having scribble strips are the end of the world. And I also think it kind of helps in that, because I had the Allen & Heath Q16, and that didn't have scribble strips either. Same thing, you could look at it on the screen. But that also had 16 faders all in one layer. And I felt like that was harder to keep track of. Having 10 faders and 2 layers, I feel like is easier to keep track of, even without putting tape down. Just because, like, if I did do a full band, theoretically, I will not, I'll be using my X32 for that, but theoretically, if I did a full band, you know, we're talking kick, snare, hi-hat, tom, tom, tom. Kick, snare, hi-hat, tom, tom, tom. You know, at minimum, right? Well, maybe 5, maybe 6. But that's over half of the first page, right? And then I'd have bass, 2 guitars, maybe a vocal. Geez, can I fit a whole band on one page? Maybe. But I don't know, I just feel like that's easier to keep track of. Even if I only use the same amount of faders on like a Q16, I'd have a bunch of dead faders that weren't doing anything. I don't know. The smaller form factor, I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. Anyways, I'll move on from this. I also like that I was able to purchase a Wi-Fi dongle, although it's a little tricky to figure out which one to buy, because in the manual you have to read, they tell you like, buy one with one of these 3 chipsets. right? And it's like RT something, because I think Realtek makes them. I think there might be one other brand that they're okay with, or maybe it is just Realtek. I don't remember, but I looked them up, and then I was like, well, I want a nice brand name Wi-Fi dongle. So I'm looking at, I think I looked at like Netgear's website, and they don't say what chipset they use, because they probably don't want people to know they're just using a standard Realtek chipset in their Netgear gear, right? Like, they don't really make it, so they don't tell you. So I had to go on Amazon and I just searched for the chipset, and I wound up with this pluggable. That's all it says on it, is pluggable. So something from China. But you know what? They said what chipset it had. But that's probably it makes it a little tricky to try to figure out what Wi-Fi dongle to use. Now, in a real mixing environment where I may be wandering around with the tablet, I'm going to put a real router on here. But for just having the tablet next to it, little Wi-Fi dongle, perfect. So as far as functionality, let's get into how this thing actually works. I have babbled enough. So the ins and outs, I think, are great. In the fact that it has, 16 XLR ins, 8 of them are combo jacks. Now it does have 2 1/4-inch ins here to make 17 and 18, and then 19 and 20 is the headphone jack in the front. Now this actually doesn't bother me. I like that it really has 16 inputs, and I kind of consider these just extra ones. So usually I'll use 19 and 20 as like a headphone to headphone backup aux cord in case I need to plug my phone in and play a song. But then if I also have like my computer up, I usually do 17, 18 also as a stereo. I link them together, and I do 1/4-inch to headphone and plug my laptop in. Or if I'm DJing with a controller, I'll probably do RCAs to 1/4-inch to plug in there if I'm using a real controller. So far, I've only used this with my Newmark DJ to Go. Like, I kind of like using that at corporate events because it's so small. I can put it just right in front of my laptop. And really what I want to get is a Stream Deck for when I'm playing all these different announcements and stuff, because some of them go so fast, you want to hit one and then hit the other one. And I usually use virtual DJ and a controller, and it's easy to play one, flip the fader, hit the other one. But if you need to drag and drop quick, and if they're quick announcements or something, or quick little things you're playing, a Stream Deck would be a little bit more handy. So eventually, I'm going to look like I'm in the mothership eventually at these corporate events. I'd like to have one computer with a Stream Deck, so I have the Stream Deck available. I'd like to have my DJ computer with my controller, and then obviously a tablet, for this, so enough screens all over eventually. But the inputs are good, the outputs are good. 8 XLR outs, and then it does have these 2 1/4-inch outs that make for 9 and 10 outs. And here's where I'm going to start to get into stuff. So you can only make a mix, because you'll see here, sorry, I really need another camera. You'll see here, you've only got 8 mix options. So it actually took me a while. I was reading through the manual, and everything just talks about those 8 mixes, and confusing. So I was like, well, what the hell are 9 and 10 for? It took me a while. But essentially 9 and 10 they're not quite matrix mixes, but close to it. So you've got XLR main outs for left and right. And then 9 and 10, you can actually program to be different things. You have to go into the output routing and click on them. And my plan is going to be just to make them left plus right each. So I have 2 mono outs, and those are essentially going to be my matrices for either, side fills, front fills, or another room. That's what I'm going to use them as. So it's not quite a matrix in where you could, put different bus mixes to it. So it's not quite like that, but you can assign what you want to come out here. You just can't create a mix for it. But I do like that because it's essentially what I use matrix mixes for. Because I don't make a matrix mix with a couple of different bus mixes going to the matrix to send out. I don't do that, so I basically just mirror the main left right out. So I'm just going to use them as mono left plus right for a few extra outs in different directions so I can control the volume independently. Now, as far as the mix outs go, these are a few things I had to do a little research on because I have started a complete new mixing strategy for corporate events, and I wasn't quite sure if I could do that mixing strategy on here. I might make a video on it eventually. I mean, and it might just sound like a no-brainer to most people, but my mixing strategy essentially is where I will I'll EQ the main outs. So like the main matrix sends, the left, right. I'll EQ those to ear so I get the room sounding how I like it with pre-programmed music, and that's how I usually EQ a PA for live bands. But my previous strategy was I would EQ the mains to like, what is the shittiest mic I'm going to have on stage? Usually it's going to be the lav somebody's walking around with. And I would essentially just ring it out based on the lav. But now what I've started doing, and this is where it probably sounds like common sense to most people, what I've started doing now is EQing the mains the way I like it, so I get the room sounding the way I want the room to sound. And then on the X32, I just make a mix group. One for the lectern mic, one for the handhelds, one for the lavaliers, one for countrymen. So usually I'll have four subgroups. And then the subgroups is where I do my fine notch ringing out of each thing. Although with the lav, sometimes it's not a super fine notch, but you know, anybody that's mixed labs and in a loud room with speakers that seemingly are closer to the stage than you want, you wind up cutting out a lot. And so I'll EQ the group of lavs, because they're always the same model, you know. I'll EQ the group of lavs, the group of handhelds, and get them rung out so they're not going to feed back anywhere in the room. And the reason I do that, because you might be asking, why don't you just do that on the channel and copy and paste? I do it because then I have the channel flat. For example, I was running sound at a corporate event the other day for the guy that talks about making his bed, the military guy. And when he got on stage with the lav, you know, we never actually sound checked him with the lav on. So he got on stage, and I thought his voice, usually with a lav, a lot of times I'll notch so much stuff out it starts sounding thin. He actually sounded a little too bassy. So that's where I then default to the channel EQ, and I can just cut a few dB out in that 150 range, and that'll give me a little bit more of a contour for his voice. So main outs, EQ those the way I like the PA to sound. Mix buses, ring out whatever I'm using for mics at that corporate event. Reserve individual channel EQ for potential contour changes based on who might be grabbing a mic or who might be having the lav. So that's my mixing strategy right now with corporate events, and it seems to work pretty well. I was kind of wondering if this had the ability for mix buses or if it was just mixed outs. But from what I'm looking at, well, they're the same thing, and technically I would be mixing a mix out. I believe I can also use it as a send to the main. Don't quote me on that yet, because I have not done it in practice, but I'm going to be trying that. I actually wanted to do it today at 1 o'clock. I've got to go over to the Avalon in town and mix some Women's Summit or something. But what annoys me a little bit, not to get completely sidetracked on everything, is, yes, I've got a broken foot, but I still like to be there when things get set up, when things get EQ'd and stuff. Like, I like to do the EQing. I like to place the microphones where I want. I like to say where I want the speakers put. Granted, I might not be able to set them up, Well, their house sound guy is like, don't worry, like, he's gonna set everything up, get everything mixed, get everything EQ'd, but he can't stay, so we're gonna have you just come in and mix the event. I hope he does everything the way I want. Because then I'm kind of dependent on the guy that was there before me. And Todd knows what he's doing. I'm not that worried. But it wouldn't cost any more for me to come there. Like, if I'm doing an outside event for them, I get a $300 day rate is what I'm getting right now. It's just a freelance sound tech to not bring any equipment, just kind of wander in and do my job. So, which sometimes it works out nicely and I work for maybe 5-6 hours and make my $300. There has been a few long days where they have verged on 12 hours and I have said, I am not getting paid enough for this. But overall, it's not like me doing one of my gigs where I'm going out and I'm doing literally everything. If I'm there for 12 hours, probably 4 or 5 of those hours I'm sitting doing nothing because there's 7-8 other people working the event. I haven't had a chance to really use the effects yet. I think I'm going to pause this really fast. And I think I'm going to drop the camera down because I am going to show you one thing I have a complaint on with this mixer. And perhaps it's that I'm just too fast. But I don't think that's the deal. I think it's the way they have the knobs programmed. So I'm going to say one complaint. RCF, pay attention and update this firmware for me. Okay, I really do not have a very good overhead camera position, but we're going to do this. Okay, so since we're looking down at this, you'll see there are 4 layers, right? And you just hit them with these. And then that lets you kind of view your channel structure. Now, like I said, 1 through 10, 11 through 20. Then this row is your effects sends, I guess. Or would that be the returns? That's the returns, never mind. Effects returns, RET. So your return volumes on your effects, which I usually leave those like that anyways. Then you've got your customs, which I think 1 through 4 are pre-programmed to be DCAs. Now here's where some things, like I'm used to the X32. Here's where some things get a little not as easy to operate, I will say, because I think, and here's where I'm actually going to have to even think about this, because is it even in a channel send? Assigning DCAs are not as easy. Like on the X32, I want to assign a DCA. I hold the button and go select, 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 assigned. Super easy, right? On here, not so easy. I think you have to, do you go into system? Boy, yeah, mute groups, DCAs. Okay. So input 1 assigned to DCA group 1. See, like it's not as easy as it is on the X32. So I don't think I'm ever going to use DCAs on this thing, but these are programmed to a few different things, and it's nice that they're able to be programmed to a few different things because it makes more sense than just having them. We're going to have these do nothing. But I think if they would have made these 6 independent mix buses, or the ability for these to be 6 mix buses while still maintaining your mix outs, I think I would have preferred that a little bit better. Because, I might want to have my 8 mix outs, but it would be nice to have some subgroups, some mix groups, whatever you want to call them. But anyways, that wasn't my big complaint. Hopefully you'll catch this on camera. Let's say I'm in here, and so there I've got a little notch at 148, right? I can move that back and forth. Now here's my complaint. So let's say, the first notch is over here to shelf, and you're like, well, I don't want a shelf. let's say a lot of times when I am notching out specific frequencies, I start with a Q of 5. So if I'm doing a Q of 5, I can take the knob and rotate it many times and slowly get it up to not 5, but 4.9. The X32 doesn't even 5. This one does not. It's 4.9 or 5.10. So I'd probably do 4.9. But let's say I'm trying to mix fast, like I'm doing a band and I need to get that up there, right? Whoa, I'm at 20 and I only turned it like 2 times. Let me show that again to you. I'm at a Q of 1. Now I'm going to go here. Okay, well, that wasn't fast enough. But you see how I'm turning it the same, and depending upon how fast I spin the knob, it doesn't stop going up when I go up. So, like that's maybe like a third of a turn, and I'm going from, okay, so I'm going to go from this to that, which would be probably a third, but I'm going to try to do it fast. Went up to 6, right? At like a third of a turn. So the reason why this bugs me is a lot of times I'll be going fast. Like, I want this one. We're going to pop it up here because, we got a little sibilance maybe. Then I dip it down. Shit, I don't want that big of a Q. Oh man, I'm already up at like 13. I'm trying to do this fast, and the Q just keeps popping around. And it's the same thing with this. Like they have it programmed where even though I stop moving my finger, right? Like maybe I'm moving really fast and I get it right where I want, because I moved my fingers, the knobs so fast, it's almost like the system lags. Like I stop moving my finger, yet it continues to move. And the rate at which it moves is variable based on how fast I'm turning the knob. And maybe that's just something to get used to, but I like how on the X32, the knobs click. Now, I get they don't click on this, but still the same thing should be evident. If I do 3 clicks, it should click up 3 notch spaces, right? Like if I quickly do 8 clicks, it shouldn't jump up, 20 notch clicks. Like that's what annoys me. And hopefully this is showing that. And how did I instantly go up to a Q of 20? Like, I was trying to mix really fast when I was ringing out some microphones day one with this thing, because a lot of the tops and bottoms will start on shelf, and I'm like, well, I need to get that at 5. And I'd think I'd stop at like 4, but it'd go all the way to 20, and I'm like, what the heck are you doing? And then, it makes it hard. If you're moving fast, it makes it hard to get it there, which means you really have to slow down with your knob turning on this. And, I know what you're thinking, Brian. You're just too good and you're just too fast for this thing. I'm totally joking on that. But that's one of my gripes, is that I don't know if this is lagging how fast I'm turning the knob. Like, is it lagging, or because it seems to have a variable, if I move the knob really slow, it seems to go really slow and click by click, but if I move it fast, it really wants to shoot it up there really fast, like I'm trying to go far. I don't know, but I don't like it. I would like a knob that no matter how fast I turn it, if I turn it at a quarter of a turn, it only adjusts it a quarter of a turn worth of adjustments. So that is gripe 1. Is it a make or break for this mixer? No, I don't think it is, but it's definitely annoying, and I wish RCF would change that in the firmware. That's definitely gripe number 1. Also, the EQ looks really small here. You can zoom in and have it take up a bigger EQ. I'd say my other gripe is that they did not layer the RTA over this. So a lot of times, especially with monitors, if I'm back at front of house, I can't necessarily hear what frequency is feeding back in a monitor if I hear it. But sometimes you can see it on an RTA. And to see it, like if we said, mix out 1, is feeding back somewhere, I would actually have to go like this, since it's selected, hit home again, watch the RTA. I would have to cue the RTA, cue it. So now it's selected, mix out 1. Now mix out 1 will show on the RTA. And I will be able to see, what could potentially be feeding back. But then, of course, I've got to go back here, a couple clicks, pay attention to what frequency that was, then turn it down. And if you have got overwhelming building frequencies that are really just about to blow out your compression drivers, that little bit of having to go, yep, there it is, okay, that one, and then notch it down, that little bit of lag time could mean the difference between keeping your compression drivers or not, if you're getting, building feedback that's about to squeal out of control. And that's another reason why I am using a tablet next to this, is so that if need be, I can have the tablet on the RTA where I want it. If this is the mix out I'm doing, the tablet can be watching the RTA, or I can watch the RTA on the tablet while still having it here and still, notching it out. And obviously this is a touch screen. Oh wait, does pinching not work? What the heck? So even though it's a touch screen, you can't pinch it. You still got to change the cue with this knob, which I will say for me isn't the end of the world, but I probably won't be using the touch screen much anyways, because I do kind of just prefer bringing that down. But once again, I want it to stop where I want it to stop. If I'm getting feedback and I want to go, whoa, like, let me just try this. I'm getting feedback at 5K. Well, I thought I stopped turning it at 5K, but now it's at 8.1. So you gotta, I'm gonna slowly bring that back to make sure I got it on 5K. Well, let's try this again, 1K. I swear I stopped at maybe 900, but it went all the way down to 590 after I stopped. That needs to be fixed. Just a few other things. Let me go back to an actual input. So high pass frequency is here. I do wish that when you had the high pass frequency on, it would shade the area on here. Not super necessary, but if I've got, it just does it as a line right there. It doesn't actually show the contour like a lot of mixers do. Not make or break. The de-esser is actually inside the compressor, so there's a de-esser on each channel, so it's not rack mounted like in the X32. But you do have to pick a frequency. So you turn the de-esser on. You can have it either in high pass, where it's going to de-ess everything after this frequency, or you can put it in band pass, which I don't necessarily know when you have it in band pass. So I assume this is like almost an EQ, like an EQ, but as a compressor, like a parametric almost with the band pass is what I'm guessing. And then, you pick what frequency do you want it at, and you can kind of figure that out yourself. But my curiosity is, if we're doing a band pass filter where it's selecting a certain frequency range, how wide of a frequency range is it selecting? So high pass would be everything above that is getting compressed. Band pass would be a selectable frequency. So I'm curious about that, and I didn't see anything in the manual. These are your sends. So you can plug a USB drive in here. Kind of cool that it's got an SD card. So, you can pop an SD card in there and kind of throw it in there and forget about it. You can multi-track right to the SD card or the USB. I don't believe you can do an external hard drive. I think it's got to be thumb drive or SD card. Overall, I would say, ergonomics, button position, not bad. It seems fine to me. I like that it's got the full full readouts there. Yeah, I think that might be it for this one. This is kind of my initial thoughts just after using it a couple of times. Once I use it on more in-depth gigs, I am sure I will have more to say about this. So far, I haven't built up my own scenes or anything. Eventually I'm going to have my live sound start scene that has these programmed, that automatically has outputs 17, 18 as a linked pair. But I want to use it a bit more to see how I set it up at the beginning of each gig before I say, well, this is how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to get a few more gigs under my belt where I'm constantly doing the same things over and over again. Like maybe I'll make a start scene where I just automatically pre-program 17, 18 to be a stereo pair. Because that is one thing I'm going to do every time, and that might just be the basics of my start scene. And then eventually I'll add on I keep programming the tap effects here. Maybe I'm doing one of these as a mute. I got to be careful which ones I do as mutes, so I don't accidentally forget. One is the master mute, or mutes all inputs, something like that. I know somebody put copy and paste there, but I don't necessarily think that copy and paste is a hard one to get to, because in here there's literally copy, paste, and then what do you want to paste? So I don't necessarily think copy and paste is a hard one to get to, so I'm probably not going to do a copy and paste, but I'll probably do, depending upon how I set up the effects, one of these will be a tap. One of these, I was thinking maybe if I only do one delay, this will be a tap. This will be my talkback, where I've got to hold it down to talk. So talkback and tap is kind of what I'm thinking. And this does not have, I won't flip it up, but this doesn't have a dedicated talkback input. Input 16 is actually the talkback, and I haven't used it yet to actually see. I don't know if it's just always programmed as a talkback, so if you're using it as a talkback, you keep 16 down, go into System, Utilities, Talkback. Where do you want to send it? I got 4 band members. I'm going to send it there. And then it just sends the talkback. And then I'm going to engage this as the turn on your talkback button. And then does it just talk back based on this level here? And I leave this fader down. And if I want me to come out the mains, I bring this up too. Things I have questions about, but have not ran into at a gig yet, so I haven't tried it out. But anyways, if you have any questions on this thing, if there's anything you want me to try out, if there's any more of a detailed video you want about the just user interface, mixing stuff, how things work, throw it down in the comments section, and maybe instead of just doing my generic follow-up review, maybe I'll go through and answer a few questions if people have questions. One thing I will also say, just quickly, if we're on channel 1, bank 1, we start out here, you can load so there's user banks if you want to save your own gate. Otherwise, you can go to the read-only memory, ROM, and pick what kind of gate you want. Well, let's see, I'm doing a kick. We'll load that. Looks a little tight to me, but you never know. I guess depends upon your kick guy. I'd maybe roll that back a little bit to start out. But then when you go here, it doesn't just load a channel preset where you're getting your kick, you're getting your EQ. Here you'd still have to go in here, user bank, drum. We're gonna do kick start load. And then if you want to do a compressor, preset, user bank, compressor, what are we doing here? We got drums, load. So, well, I think it's nice that you can kind of pick and choose whether you want to use all of the presets. Maybe you don't. It would be nice to be able to just save it as a channel preset, instead of so it looks like you can save your own channel presets, but there are no full set ROM presets, which is probably fine, because if you say you like their preset, their different presets, you could put it together, build your own, tweak it, and save it as yours. And then I would assume, if I usually just make my own. I don't usually go off of what's built in, because it always seems like everybody likes to do everything a little bit different. So the fact that I can save and load my own channel presets is good. If I did just want to save my own individual one, I can do that too. But channel presets are key. But it's a little slow if you're dependent on built-in presets and you're doing these one at a time, loading each individual one. It's time consuming during a sound check. I like the fact that on my X32, if need be, I can sound check a full band, ins, outs, monitors, everything, 10-15 minutes. I'm really fast on that, and so these are some things that I would see that would slow me down, especially if I'm dependent on having to go into the built-in presets and individually load each 3 different presets for one channel. You start doing that for 16 channels, then you're loading 56 presets? Did I do my math right? Probably not. That's why I'm a sound tech, not a math wizard. But anyways, you get what I'm saying. Any questions, throw it down in the comments section. Until next time. So I was busy putting everything away, and I thought to myself, I never said if I recommend this or not, or if I'm thinking, do not buy. But no, overall, I like this mixer. It seems to have a lot of power for the price point and the size. So if you're looking for a small, compact mixer that has physical faders, physical knobs, physical buttons that you can press, I think this is a good option. Like I said, my only complaints are kind of the way they did the EQ knobs, just the knobs in general, the way they're programmed to turn when you turn them. Scribble strips would have been nice, and mix buses would have been nice too, extra ones, or mix groups, but that's not a make or break for me. But those would be my main critique would be the knob. But overall, yeah, I would recommend this. Now, I would recommend this because it's in the sub $2,000 price category. Like, you're not going to get the functionality of, say, a SQ5, or, you're not even going to get the functionality of, say, an X32. But I'm going to not be buying anything in the Behringer ecosystem again, just because of the way they're doing it, like the way they're doing their distribution. They're only selling through a few select partners in the US instead of, distributing to stores. And I just don't like the way that they're doing that. Number one, I like to get everything at dealer cost. So that don't work for me. So obviously, Behringer's going to be cheaper. You're going to get more functionality out of it, but I think as well, I don't think they're making the current X32s as solid as they made the old ones. Whenever they came out with like the M32 Live, I think they figured out how to make them cheaper at that point, and they really started making them cheaper. And, I'd love to get a wing, but you look at the wing, you look at all the touchscreen issues. I mean, how hard is it to make a freaking touchscreen, right? Touchscreens are in everything. Well, why are you having ghost touching issues on a touchscreen? It's probably because they went with the cheapest touchscreen they could possibly find, and that's just, I think when Behringer bought Midas, I think they were doing good things with their mixers, but now I think a decade later, I just think I think their mixers are getting Behringerified, which means they're just getting to be cheap. And yeah, they've got the features, but you don't want it to crap out on you at a show. So enough ranting about that. Would I recommend this? So far, I would say yes. So far, I would. But know what you're buying. Small, compact, not completely fully featured. If you're looking for that, you're going to have to step up and spend another $1,000 or $2,000 to, get a big one. But for what this is, for how small it is, small bands, things like that, no problems. But if you need matrix outs, things like that, you are going to have to step up a notch. Because it has a kind of almost a matrix out. It's not a full matrix out. Anyways, once again, have a good day.